So here we're logged into the table controller. I've set it up so I can remote in, which is not a standard thing that you can do and you shouldn't do. So don't even ask. As we look at it, we see that we're using a little bit different desktop icons. We have a table start, my computer, which opens right to my computer. We have the AGS folder here, which right now is empty. This is a blank controller. There's no additional software on it. We still have our tools folder, some of the things that we can get to a lot quicker and easier. We're running the BG background, BG info, so you can see the name of the table right now is AGS table. One of the things that's going to happen during the installation process is we're going to change this. We also see the IP address is 169.0.0.1, so that is a change also, and the reason for this is so that you don't have two tables that show up on the in the system with the same IP address because we forgot to do it. This way, it's always disconnected, and we have to make sure or remember to go in and set the IP address. And then we see the two MAC addresses just to make things easier to where if you're looking at this and you're looking at the mapping page, trying to figure out which MAC address you have, you can tell which one it is. I think the left port for the table controller is always this bottom one. I'd have to go back and recheck that. So this is just a blank controller, just like the progressive controller is. They're going to be able to put these on a shelf, ship them to you, and you're going to install the software. How do we get the software? Well, that's on a USB stick. So if I go to my computer and we open up this USB drive I already had installed, we have a few scripts that we need to run, and inside this table setup folder is all the files that are going to be installed. Now we do need to just run these scripts. The first one we're going to run, double click, disables the write filter. And if you notice here, the unified write filter is already disabled, no action taken. If that's the case, you can continue on without doing any additional work. You don't have to restart. If it says it'll happen after a reboot, go ahead, restart the controller at this point, log back in so we can run number two. When we run number two, that one's actually calling out for this table script, AGS, and here's our AGS table stacks. It's going to install this folder on the controller. If we are in a VM situation or one that doesn't use our standard certificates, we can add the certificate to this folder. And the rare instance where we have to edit the host file, we add the host file to this folder and it'll install it. When we right click and go edit on this number two, it just shows us what's going to happen during this install process. So it removes the AGS directory. And the reason for this is one of the things we'll be able to do is take a bonus spin extreme and make it stacks, or take a stacks and make it bonus spin extreme. So we don't have to replace the table controllers to go from one to the other. It's going to remake that AGS directory, and then it's going to copy everything from the USB stick to that AGS. The rest of these items are commented out, but if we wanted to, let's say we're in Central Time, we can delete the two colons here, and now it'll set the time zone to Central Standard Time. If we needed to install the certificate, as long as it is named certificate and has password 1 as the password, putting that certificate in that certificate folder and then deleting the comments out will install the certificate automatically. So the nice thing is once we get this USB set and we get the first table running based off of it, then every table after that will be exactly the same. You just have to change the IP address. If the location you're at is DHCP, we can have it automatically set the network to DHCP. Or if we're in one of the places where we set a different static IP and we're only changing the last 3 every time, IAA will be able to assist us in setting this portion of the script up to where it sets the IP address. We just tell it the last 3. It'll ask us during the installation. We type in the last 3, it sets the rest of that information for us. If we want, we can comment out the time CPL, and this way it opens up the clock and puts it right in your face to where you don't have to go find it to set the time. And at the end here, it's going to run a PowerShell script. It's calling out to a script that's inside the folder. So if I close this is something that'll run every time, has to. Don't save. this name PC, what this does is it calls out, gets the MAC address of the PC of one of the network ports, doesn't matter which one, and then renames the table, which you'll see here host name. Once this runs, this will change to table dash, and then it'll show one of these MAC addresses. This will keep all the table controllers from having the same MAC address or the same name, where in some instances that causes the double-sided monitor to not update, even though the game is, let's say, functional and running, just not in play. So once you touch the dealer screen, all of a sudden the double-sided monitor starts working correctly. This resolves that issue by renaming these PCs. We're going to probably rename all the PCs out in the field, even though they're not using this process, just because it's a good habit or a good process to have. So if I go back to install software, we just double click it. It's going to ask us if we want to run this, yes or no. We type yes and enter. It's going to copy all the files. Now the reason we have to run, pull this to the side. The reason we run these shortcuts is because if you go to properties, advanced, run as administrator. If you don't run these as administrator, they fail. So we're just creating shortcuts to do that for us so we don't have to remember to right click run as admin. And we notice over here on our left side, it's copied all the files and it's saying that these changes will take effect after you restart the computer named AGS table. This warning is here because we're changing the name. Now, after we've changed the name, if we run this script again, this warning becomes a bunch of red letters saying it's already this name, and it's perfectly fine. You can hit continue. So we press spacebar to continue. And at this point, we're going to restart the table controller. It'll come back up with a new name, and it'll show the IP address. I've already set it to 172.16.0.101. So the BG info will update on the next reboot. So let's do that now. Now we're logging back in. And we should see a little pop-up down here for BG info. There it is. It's calling out and it's going to change this information right here. No idea why it just went full screen like that, but you can now see it shows me my IP address and my actual table name. If I open this AGS folder, I bet there's files in there. There's our AGS table stacks. So the software installed, let's see if it runs. So this table start calls out to the startup script to run the application. We did add a timeout in here of 10 seconds. That's to alleviate some of the disconnect issues we get with the table starting faster than the server can really receive it. So you'll see a little bit more of a delay on pretty much all of them. And why didn't that run? All right, so how I remoted in, it's causing an issue. I didn't get to sign out the other user. Is if you ever have an instance where the controller isn't running correctly or it won't run the application when you log in, Control-Shift-Escape, go to users, and there we see the AGS user is still connected. We will sign them off. Now we run the application. There we go. So we have stacks 1.6, that's what's installed. This was already mapped to the table. So it's up and running. Pretty simple process overall. So the only change that's really occurred is that you're going to receive the software on a USB stick and you'll have to install that the day you need it. Now, one of the things that's nice about this, if I kill the application, let's say the double-sided monitor was having an issue, and the answer is to go get the Unity folder off the table next to it. Not anymore. You can go get the setup USB, plug it in, disable write filter, which is still disabled because I haven't re-enabled it. Do your reboot if necessary, and then go back and install number one. Yes. So essentially, it's like a RAM clear for the tables at that point. It's just going to remove all the old files, reinstall the new ones, and here you see it was already named table with the MAC address. So it's skipping that. It's just showing this in red. That's perfectly normal. And then we can run the application again. And it still works. We do need to, once we get the table up and running, go back in and run the script for number 3 to enable the write filter. So unified write filter will be enabled after system restart. Once we restart, that filter is there, keeping all the files that engineering has decided they don't want to ever change from changing if something or someone goes in there and doesn't know what they're doing. Some of the other files that were already exempt are still exempt, but the base image as it goes out should have those already disabled. You'll have to just enable them at the end of the day. So this portion's for IAA, and it comes, how do we assist the technician? So some of the things that we may need to do, if I run the application here, let's look at some of the things that are happening on the monitor itself. And this is for stacks. It'll be a little bit different for bonus spin extreme, but it's still very similar. Is one of the things we may need to change is this logo at the top of the screen. So once we've set that logo correctly, we get that one table up and running. What we can do is we can go in and we can just copy this AGS tables from the local disk and put this on the USB stick. All you're going to do is just copy this, go to the USB stick, table setup, AGS, delete the old one. And paste in the one that came from the table itself. This way we know as we go from one table to the next that the files are going to work. Now it's not just the logo at the top that changes. So once it's done copying, let's go through some of the other changes that need to be done for a VM system that this process is going to automate, so that once we've done it once, we don't have to do it again. And the USB stick is just going to make all these things happen for us. So as I go into, let's just look at this USB stick. One of the things that comes up is dealer terminal exe config. I believe in some of the other ones, it may have a little bit different name, but this is the application. And it's always the config of it. When I open this, what I'm looking at is this endpoint address, 172.16.11. That's the stacks service address. In a VM situation, this may be 10.8.24.11. That's where that application server is. So we need the IP addresses to match whatever the network architecture is, but the endpoint where the application calls out for the server application, that's the endpoint, and that's what this address is right here. Once in a while, you'll see those are actually just a DNS name, maybe MGM Grand Springfield or something. But for the most part, it's usually an IP address. I'm going to leave that at 172.16.0.11. Quick troubleshooting step while we're in here. I don't want to get too random, but if we copy the endpoint address and we go into Internet Explorer, Firefox, whatever you like to use, and we paste it and we hit enter, it should look like this. If we can't hit this page, the casino's network is blocking it on some port. Don't know which port, might be the 8088. I just know that if we can't see this port, there's nothing wrong with our system. It's the casino's network. Now, if you can't hit the actual web page, that could be a couple different issues. But hitting the endpoint address, we should be able to hit that as long as there's nothing interfering with it. So we've set the endpoint. We got that to what it needs to be. It's on the USB stick. Save. We may need to go into Unity, configuration, game type, and change our logo at the top. So right now, this Super 4 is the one that is on there by default. To change this, we're gonna drag it into game logos and replace destination file. The reason we do that is because when you try to delete it, it tells you don't have privileges. So that's the easiest way to do it. Go back into game logos, find the one that we want to run. Maybe they're running Vegas 3. So we'll copy, back out, and paste. So when I run, well, I'd have to rerun the USB stick. We'll do that in a second here. So now it should be Vegas 3 at the top. One of the other things we can do when we go to the certificates, let's look at exporting the certificate and then adding it in here for the installation. Now I'm doing this off of the table, which is the same process if you were at the server, so it's no big deal. We're going to go MMC, File, Add Remove Snap-in, double click Certificates, Computer Account, Finish, and then OK. When I go in here, I see certificates in my personal, all the certificates that we've installed on this table controller. I can even highlight all these at once, right click, all task, export. So if the casino gives you a VM that has 2, 3 different certificates, let's install those one by one and then export them as one big file. Next, yes, export the private key, have to have it for this to work. You can leave this alone, just hit next. We're going to use a password of P@SSWORD1. So capital P@SSWORD1. And next, browse out. Let's just put it on the desktop for now. Call it certificates. And then save. Next, finish. So there's our certificate, PFX. Go ahead and close this. I don't need to save it. It's just asking if you want to save the environment or the session you're in. There's no need to. It's not going to undo anything. I can take the certificate, drop it in here, and when we uncomment out the certificate portion of the script, it's going to find this and it's going to install it because it's named certificate and it has the P@SSWORD password. Wrong one. Install software. That's what you're seeing here. It's named certificate PFX and has this as the password. It'll install that for us automatically so that we don't have to think about it. Actually, let's have a little fun here. Let's go MMC. Let's delete those certificates just to prove that I'm right. Watch this fail and I'll laugh at myself. Personal and delete. I like to copy those into the trusted root also, so I'll delete them out of here. Yes, delete. All right, so those are gone. Close. Well, I'm just going to minimize. Never mind. So if I go in here, I should have my certificates already. We changed this, so when we run this, it should update, and now the logo at the top should go from Blackjack to Vegas 3. But we have to go into our script and uncomment out certificate import. Close, save. So now when I run this, let's replace the files. Look at that, replace the files. Certificate BSX or BS2 or 120, so it goes off the friendly name, was added to store, so it's installed all 4 of those certificates, and then it's skipping the naming again. Let's just check MMC, file, add remove snap-in. There's our certificates. I'm not sure, does it put it in both? Puts it in both locations. It's too easy. This is too easy. All right, let's run our application and see if it, Sure, I remember what we're deleting. Skip. Try again. Skip. All right. Hopefully we see Vegas at the top and no disconnect because of the certificate. Vegas Poker is at the top. It's working. And we can log in. The certificate's installed correctly. Now we can take this and we can go table to table, and every single table will be set up the same. The technician will have to know and follow the instructions that we've built to go through and set the IP address, but that's fine. Small thing that they have to do. Close, log out. You believe that's everything you need to know.